As your moderator today, I am pleased to announce the session and this best practices session will be presented today by Dr. Lonnie Nelson and Celina Mahinalani Garza, and they will be delivering a presentation today on facilitating talking circles using principles of motivational interviewing. We're very pleased to have them here today, and we thank them for presenting. Dr. Nelson and Celina Garza will also be introducing themselves. So without further ado, thank you, and they will begin the presentation. Thanks.
Welcome, everyone. Good to be here. Presented for USET a while back, and it was a pleasure, and so I'm glad to be back. Can you see my slides okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So, Oshio, hello. Lonnie Nelson Dawado. My name is Lonnie Nelson. I'm a descendant of the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians, and I'm a clinical psychologist by training. I was born in southwestern Ohio in the Miami River Valley, and my mom was an Indian Health Service nurse growing up, and so I moved around quite a bit. Ended up out in Arizona and graduated from high school in Dene country at Navajo Nation, Tuba City High, and then went to Pima Community College and then University of Arizona for my bachelor's, master's, and my doctorate in clinical psych. After that, I spent about 5 years working with the military doing brain injury rehabilitation for soldiers coming back from theater of operations in the Middle East, and then went back to my passion, which was Native health, and I've been doing research in Native health disparities and trying to address those through research and culture-based interventions since about 2012. The place that I work is called Partnerships for Native Health, and I do what I do primarily because of the folks in the pictures up on the screen here. That's my grandma, my dad, me, and my daughter. And it's really the family relations that really pull me to the work. I lost my oldest brother to complications of diabetes when he was just 49 years old. And I just, I've seen the impact of health disparities that our relatives face throughout my family all my life. And it drives me to do what I do and to try and do it in a good way. I would ask who all of you are normally, especially if we were in person, but it's kind of hard to accomplish that on Zoom. I am given to understand that y'all are providers, though, to your Native serving organizations and agencies. And so I hope that you find this information relevant and helpful as we move forward. And I'm just going to pass the mic to Celina here to introduce herself.
Good morning. Aloha kaka'yaka. My name is Celina Mahinalani Garza. My family comes from all of the islands of Hawaii. My mom is from Maui. My step-up dad on the top right-hand corner, the big bald head Hawaiian guy, everybody remembers him as, was our step-up dad. He raised us. He's from Big Island, from Kona side. My biological father is Mexican-American, and also descendant of the Isleta Pueblo de Sioux in El Paso, Texas. So I like to tell people I'm brown, and I love our culture, and I love what I do. So I've been working in Indian country for about 11 years, our family collectively for over 60. My grandmother was a speaker and a presenter and a professional hula dancer and a historian. And in the middle here, I'm also a mother of 10. We blended our family, and I am also a Jima. So I have 7 grandchildren. I have 6 granddaughters and 1 grandson. So currently I work for MedStar Health Research Institute, and we have a field office here in Phoenix, Arizona. So I'd like to acknowledge the land here that I'm on is the Acoma O'odham people and the Peepash people here in Arizona. Since I do not live in Hawaii, very honored to serve and work with Native people. throughout Indian country. So I also have a independent business, and it's called Native Lifeway. So I've been traveling throughout Indian country for about 11 years, and I do a lot of motivational facilitation, some life coaching, and my background is with mind-body transformational psychology and La'au Lapa'au, which is herbology. So very honored to be here. And why I do what I do is much like Lonnie. I've been working with Lonnie for about 6 years now, had some training with him, and I'll get to share a little bit about that later. But I do what I do for our people, and I do what I do to leave the legacy for our family. So just very honored to be here. Thank you.
And just a little bit of background, when Celina and I first met, she was applying to be a coordinator on a study that I was doing using talking circles to reduce stroke risk at the household level. And with very, very little training, she was doing it perfectly. So she, in a lot of ways, she kind of taught me what I was supposed to be teaching her. And so I thought it would be appropriate, since we were speaking on that topic and trying to share that knowledge with y'all, that she joined me, because she was one of my very best facilitators of talking circles out in the field during that study. And I really appreciated everything that she brought to that role. And I thought that it would be nice to share it all with you. Brief overview. We're just going to do a brief introduction to what motivational interviewing is, talk about the spirit of motivational interviewing and the MI prayer, why motivational interviewing is particularly appropriate for Native populations, what indigenized motivational interviewing is. Not many people recognize that it is a Native practice. It has its roots there. And the theory of change in motivational interviewing. And then we'll talk about talking circles and what a talking circle is, how they're conducted, and then finally, how you can apply the spirit of motivational interviewing in the context of facilitating a talking circle and what that process looks like. So, quick definition, motivational interviewing is a way of being with clients that facilitates the exploration of their experience and thoughts around behavior changes of different kinds, with the intention of helping them to make the best decisions for their life and their health. That's sort of the textbook definition. If you pull that apart a little bit, Celina contributed this sort of perspective on what MI is. Celina, you want to walk through this?
I recently did a presentation last month for women, and they asked me what it is that I really enjoy doing, and I wanted to share the perspective of motivational interviewing. Motivational interviewing to me is it's engaging, inspiring, and empowering others to embrace happier, healthier, healing life ways. Because when we heal others and help others heal, we heal ourselves too.
And this characterizes the really reciprocal nature of motivational interviewing. It's really an engagement of equals. When you're using MI with clients, I like to refer to them as relatives as opposed to clients. You know, when you're engaged in MI with your relatives, you're not a counselor talking to a patient, right? You're engaged with another relative in a way that you're trying to pull them toward a healthier place. And so I thought that this characterization really captured that really well. Thank you, Celina. So some things that motivational interviewing is not. It's not analytic. You're not going to be asking people about their relationship with their mother. It's not shaming. You're not going to try and make people feel bad for where they're starting off at in any way. It's not punishing. There's nothing in MI that says, well, if you don't do this, then you're going to experience this negative outcome, which is the coercive aspect that also is not MI. It's not prescriptive. You're not telling anyone what to do. And that may seem a little bit odd, but I mean, honestly, no one likes being told what to do. So yeah, just a real quick thing. If you find yourself doing any of these things, you're no longer doing motivational interviewing. So we conceive of motivational interviewing as entering into ceremony with our relative. And Celina, if you want to talk a little bit more about that.
Yes, absolutely. So whenever I start a MI session, I really do think of it as a ceremony for myself, but also for our relatives and the people that are also on the outside that are not participating actively inside of the room. Maybe they're on the outside, but I see it as a circle. I see it as a ceremony. So even if I do not offer a prayer myself, usually I ask a elder if they would like to offer a prayer or clear the room, however they see fit, or however they do that for themselves. Quietly in my mind, I say, mahalo keakua, mahalo na amakua, mahalo na kupuna, and mahalo na kahiko, which is saying, thank you, Creator, our higher selves, come be with us. Thank you to all of our spirit relatives on the other side, the people that were in front of us, all of our ancestors, all of the elders in the room, and then the ancient ones that helped us with this. So motivational interviewing is in fact a beautiful, beautiful ceremony. And when I'm even done facilitating and participating, I feel different. I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. And I always share with our participants, I learn so much from participating in MI.
Yeah, perfect. So I talked about the spirit of MI, and you're probably getting a little bit of the flavor of that based on some of the descriptions that we've given up to this point. But key to the definition of what motivational interviewing is that it is a way of being. While there are definitely techniques, and we try and train people to only use open-ended questions and to try and help explore, your relative's experience and so on and so forth, it's really a way of being with people. And it's based on collaboration between you and the relative in evoking their ideas about their experience and their feelings about changing their behaviors and emphasizing their autonomy, right? It's really focused on the fact that they have free will to do as they wish and to approach that situation in a spirit of compassion. So Celina, did you want to read the MI prayer for folks?
It was really refreshing, Lonnie, to read this over again yesterday. And so we wanted to share this with you. And this doesn't have to be, this is a supplement, but this is in fact one of the practices that we utilize in any of the MI that we do. So we just take a deep breath, if you will, and then we can read this together. So guide me to be a patient companion, to listen with a heart as open as the sky. Grant me vision to see through her eyes and eager ears to hear her story. Create a safe, open mesa on which we may walk together. Make me a clear pool in which she may reflect. Guide me to find in her your beauty and wisdom, knowing your desire for her is to be in harmony, healthy, loving, and strong. Let me honor and respect her choosing of her own path and bless her to walk in freely. May I know once again that although she and I are different, yet there is a peaceful place where we are one.
Thank you. Yeah. So this comes from Bill Miller's work with Ray Daw, who's a Dene roadman. And Ray had told him that if MI was going to be a native practice, it had to have a prayer, a dance, and a song to go along with it. And so Dr. Miller said, well, I can handle writing the prayer, but I'm going to leave the dance and the song to more artistically inclined folks than myself, him being an old white dude. So this was what they came up with together. And I think it really conveys the spirit of reflectiveness and the respect for autonomy and collaboration and everything that we discussed in the paragraph before, or the slide before. And if you're doing this, if you're adhering to what this prayer is asking for and seeking from yourself, then you're doing MI. You don't need to worry about any specific techniques or any rules or anything like that. If you can adhere to this spirit, then you're doing it right. So why motivational interviewing for Native populations? I do a lot of work across the country with a lot of different tribes, and have a lot of collaborations with a lot of different Native communities. And there are some values that stretch across our different tribal identities. These are the respect for self-determination, the respect that we are taught to have for others, for our elders, for our environment, for the winged ones and the forelegs. I mean, that runs across all of our tribes. The sense of responsibility that respect and the connection that is acknowledged through that respect, the sense of empathy and the ability to feel those connections and to understand what others are experiencing at a deep level, and a pride in where we come from. These are all common things that fit well within motivational interviewing and are respected and acknowledged within this framework. But key among all of them is the sense of integrity. And when I say integrity, probably most people think of being an upright citizen, or saying what you do and doing what you say. But when I'm referring to integrity in this context, I'm talking about the second definition here, which is the state of being whole and undivided. So to be in such a way that no part of yourself is in conflict with another part of yourself. That's what I mean by integrity. And that desire for integrity in Native culture, it's reflected in a lot of our symbolism, with the medicine wheel and lots of other symbols throughout our cultures. But there is this sense, like even the braid of our hair, right, is the unification of mind, body, and spirit, right? I mean, so a lot of these symbols in our culture that point us toward integrity. So I like to think of motivational interviewing as a conversational style that helps to guide our relatives toward integrity, so that no part of themselves is in conflict with another part of themselves. So I typically will open by connecting with cultural practices as appropriate. If they want to smudge, sing a song, offer a prayer, as Celina mentioned. When you enter into this conversation, you're really serving as nothing more than a guide. You're not telling people what to do. You're not judging where people are. You're understanding and working with their ambivalence about changing their behavior. If it was easy, they wouldn't need you, right? If changing your behavior toward integrity was effortless and simple and not complicated, then they wouldn't need to engage with you in the way that they do. And so chief among these things is recognizing that people are the experts on their own experience. And you're just kind of helping them to explore their experience. So I did mention that this is an indigenized version of motivational interviewing. And I wanted to take just a couple minutes to talk about what the difference is between the way that we train people to do this and the way that others train people to do this. We do have this emphasis on integrity. Above all, we're striving to help people make decisions that make them feel and be whole and undivided within themselves. People that have problems with addictions, with substances, they know that their behaviors are causing bad effects in their relationships, and they value their relationships, and that creates a divide within them. People that are doing any unhealthy behavior know that that's taking years of love and connection away from their younger relatives who will lose them earlier because of the way they're behaving. And that creates a conflict within them. And so to help them to bring their behaviors into line with their values and the things that they love, that's really what this emphasis on integrity is about. The way that we approach the learning uses a spiral learning model. In Native cultures, we don't consider learning to be a linear process. You go over the same material over and over and over again, and every time you do it, you get deeper and deeper understanding. And that's where that spiral idea comes from. Connecting with cultural practices as appropriate, we do tie these in to action plans. When people talk about how they're going to change their behavior, maybe before they go on a run, they make it a point to smudge themselves, to clear out any negativity so that they can do that run as a prayer, right? And to connect that way. A lot of times we say that to dance is to pray, and to run is also to pray, right? So we incorporate cultural practices with people's action plans for their behavior change in a way to make those behavior changes more meaningful and more real, and to reaffirm the intention that they set when they decided they were going to make that behavior change. We also put an emphasis on guiding participants as a companion, not as an advisor. We do not presume to know what is best for them. Yeah, we also focus on not telling people what to do, right? This is considered psychopathic behavior in many Native cultures, unless you are that person's grandma. Grandmas are allowed to tell people what to do. Other people are not allowed to tell people what to do. And we also make it clear that if you're doing MI, you should not be judging people for where they are on their path. We accept our relatives as they come to us in whatever state they're in. And we understand inherently the pull of two worlds. The dysfunctional behaviors that are bringing them into our office are often the result of abuse, neglect, addictions in the previous generations. These things are all the secondhand smoke of the fires of colonization. And the person should not be blamed for being where they are. It's the situation that we were born into, and that we need to grow out of. And just recognizing that people know their own path. You're a visitor with limited knowledge of that path. And all that you can do is try and help them to explore. It's a privilege to be let in, to get a view of that path. And if they let you in, you got to hold yourself to respect that privilege and understand what it is. Oh, Celina?
I get excited every time I hear all of these things again, Lonnie, because to me, raised in a Hawaiian household, motivational interviewing is much like ho'oponopono. And a lot of people hear that word and say, oh my gosh, I want to learn that. I need to get certified. And so, in this moment, I want to acknowledge ho'oponopono as making things right. And as a facilitator of ho'oponopono, Hawaiian psychology, it is a time that is much like motivational interviewing. It's a time when there's someone who mediates and is in agreement with whatever it is that the people or client or participant comes to with, that we are there to support them, in a non-judgmental way. And we ask permission. So one of the things I wanted to go back to, Lonnie mentioned, is asking permission to be in someone's home. One of my favorite phrases is, I'm honored, because I really am. This work is really honoring others, but also honoring yourself. What I've learned in the last 6 years with practicing MI is that I am just like them. We all are. And that I'm learning every single day. So really that beautiful comparison of things that I already grew up with. And I mentioned my mom, she's a historian and she practices genealogy and helps people get back to the root of the family. She's been practicing motivational interviewing my whole life. I was kidding around that she could get us to do anything, but realistically, she was giving us options and supporting us in the best way that she knew how. So for example, she'd say, who wants to scrub a toilet, or who wants to clean the kitchen, wipe down the counters or the table? Well, of course, we had to make our own choice. And we already knew the easiest and what we could do best was to clean the kitchen. And so she's been practicing that for years. So I've been hearing motivational interviewing. I've been participating in ho'oponopono circles where it was a non-judgmental circle time. It was a time where we could express ourselves and knowing that we were supported and get to plans of actions or goals that were going to be healthier or that was going to suit our whole family as a whole. And I also like to see motivational interviewing and see it as a way of moving forward. And in dancing hula, we try to get to the end of the song, but it's this beautiful flow. And also it's a way to play back and forth. I share with you, you share with me. So another one of my favorite phrases is, so what I hear you saying is, what I hear you saying is, and I do that in my more recent project that I've been involved with, where we recruited 180 men. Having this one-on-one time, I was practicing motivational interviewing naturally because it was client-based, centered with their own plans of action to become healthier, happier, and heal. And I got this one-on-one to listen. I always wear earrings too. It's a reminder to listen more. Without my earrings, I feel like the whole day's different. So I have a pair of earrings in all different places, but it's a reminder for us to become better listeners. Our ancestors, the people before us, they set the way. They paved this good way to be and to acknowledge others and really good listening. And so to me, motivational interviewing is something that has always been a part of us in all different tribes and all different cultures and traditions. And so I wanted to share that with you folks because Ho'oponopono is something that you can't get certified in. It's a way of life. And motivational interviewing is just that. And now Lonnie has this beautiful training and certification where you can, in fact, put it into a way where you can practice your own natural abilities and gifts that were given to us probably from beginning of time.
Yeah, thank you, Celina. So in motivational interviewing, they think about what we know about behavior and behavior change. How do people go from being a smoker to being a non-smoker? How do people go from being a drinker to being a non-drinker, or from being a heavy drinker to being a social drinker? How does behavior change occur? And what we do know is that the more people talk positively about changing their behavior, the more likely they are to actually change their behavior. And the more people talk positively about the behavior that they are currently engaged in, the more they are likely to stay with that behavior that they're currently engaged in. And so this is the crux of motivational interviewing right here, is to elicit more change talk and less sustained talk. So you want people to be talking about all the wonderful things that will happen if they change their behavior toward integrity, right? Away from those things that are causing division within themselves. And so that being the very guts of motivational interviewing itself, all the rest of the techniques and the principles and everything else is really just ways at getting at this fundamental piece, which is the more people talk positively about changing their behavior, the more likely they are to change their behavior. It all comes down to that. The more that you can get people to talk positively about behavior change, the more likely they are to do it. So with that in mind, I don't know if we can get a show of hands, or if I'd be able to see a show of hands of how many people have ever participated in a talking circle. I don't know how common that is. If folks just want to type into the chat yes or no, I can watch the yeses and nos roll by. Maybe we can do it that way. How many folks have participated in a talking circle? Into the chat. Yes, no, yes, no. No. Okay, well, with at least one no, I'm going to go ahead and just describe the whole process then. Okay, we got 2 no's. Okay, that's good enough. So a talking circle is, generally speaking, Well, traditionally, it's a group of people who come together for a specific purpose, either to address a community concern, or to solve a family problem, or to arrive at some decision about something that needs discussion in the community. Now, the way that we have applied it therapeutically, as I mentioned before, with the goal of reducing stroke risk at the household level in one study, in a study I'm doing now, to reduce the harms associated with alcohol use disorder. There's generally some purpose that's kind of agreed upon when the people come together. It can be any number of people. Honestly, I've participated in talking circles that had 38 participants. I've participated in talking circles that had 2 participants. And I was one of them. So yeah, but really, I've found through my experience that the ideal number is somewhere between 5 and 12. That seems like a comfortable space and time to allow everyone to participate fully and to have multiple rounds of the talking circle. So the way that it goes is a facilitator is the person who's facilitating the talking circle, and sometimes that person's called the circle keeper, and they have a talking piece. It can be a stone, it can be a stick, it can be a feather, it can be anything that holds some symbolic meaning to the facilitator and hopefully the participants in the talking circle. And only the person who's holding the talking piece speaks. Everybody else's job, when the person holding the talking piece is speaking, is to listen with their entire being and try to feel and understand everything that the speaker is sharing with the circle. And when that person who's holding the talking piece has said what they have to say, they pass the talking piece to the left. And then that person who's now holding the talking piece shares what's on their heart. And this goes around. Now, as the facilitator of a talking circle, your job is to sort of help guide the circle toward integrity. And the way that you'll do that is by listening very, very carefully to everything that everyone who's in the circle is sharing. And as people share, you're going to pick out little bits of either concerns that need to be highlighted, or pieces of change talk where people are expressing an aspiration toward integrity or toward better health. You're going to listen for places of pride, places of shame. You're going to listen for all of these different things that are being shared by the relatives in the circle, and you're going to tuck them away, because when the talking piece comes back around to you and it's your turn to share what's on your heart, what needs to be on your heart as the facilitator is an empowering summary of what everyone shared. And so you'll say that phrase that Celina mentioned, "What I heard was," and that's your job as the facilitator of the talking circle, is to reflect back to the circle what you heard with your heart, and what that brings to mind for you, and what that reminds you of. That maybe it's a short story, maybe it's another open-ended question that you can pose to the group. Generally, that's what I do. I summarize what I heard up to this point and share whatever open-ended question that summary brings to mind for me. Usually it's about exploring ambivalence on that first round and people feeling unsure about where they are and what direction they need to go. And if that's the case, then maybe the question that I pose to the circle going forward is, so given all of that I just summarized, I'm wondering how people experience their bodies when they think about moving their behaviors in a healthier direction toward integrity. How does their body feel? Is there tension in certain places? Is there cold, hot feelings? Does your face flush? What does that feel like for you when you think about approaching that? And then I pass the piece. And then this diagram that's up on the screen here, with successive rounds, you get deeper and deeper into the issues, and people share of themselves more openly and more openly as you go around and pose the next question and pose the next question, always reflecting in an empowering light what you heard and posing the next question. And this goes on and goes on. There are no time limits when you're running a talking circle. It goes on until no one has anything left to say on the issue. And that can be 2 hours, that could be all night, that could be an hour. But it goes until it's done. There's no artificial limit on the process. As long as you, the facilitator, see some place to go and people have things to share and to offer, then it just continues to roll of its own volition. Celina, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add to that description.
I could see it taking place. Definitely. I've been in talking circles like Lonnie had talked about, hours. I've been in a talking circle for half the night. And it was when we were smaller and I didn't know what was happening and what was going on. But having talking circles in this way where everyone can really share, it's going to take someone who's facilitating to be a really, really good listener. But don't ever feel as a facilitator that you can't take notes. I always ask permission if it's okay if I take notes. And the first couple times I ever facilitated a talking circle in one of our projects, I did take notes because I had 15 participants. And 2 of them happened to be kids that were under the age of 7. But even the children are given an opportunity to share because we ask the children. And I feel like our children in our households, they're seeing all of these things that we're probably talking about and discussing in the talking circle, but our children need to be asked to participate. And they could be in the back and they probably come in and out of the rooms. But our children have a lot to say. And so I wanted to mention that as well, because we allow the kids to share. And when we did the project a couple years back, the household that had 15 were very successful because half of them had no idea that other people were feeling this way. And they didn't know how to bring the issue to the whole house. So half of the people lived in the front of the house and the other half lived in the back. So really listening and really reiterating to please share. This is a sacred space. Thank you for giving me permission to be here. Thank you everyone for sharing after each person shares. Thank you so much. And then it just keeps going and going. In that one particular talking circle, we didn't have a talking piece and I didn't feel in that moment to share mine with that many hands. So I asked what they'd like to use. And the 15-year-old said, let's use our broom. And I thought, what a beautiful item, right? We're going to sweep all of this out the door when we're done. And so they had this motion that they used. Each of them took the broom and swept it out the door. And so any of those things so that you can actually see, Native people are very visual people, right? Very colorful. So to actually see after we had this talking circle, brushing these things out the door, right? Clearing a new space. Everything is talked about in the circle and released, So yeah, I wanted to share that, Lonnie, because I wanted you all to know that it could be an hour, it could be 15 minutes, it could be 5 hours it could be 2 hours with 15 people of all ages, grandma, grandpa, and they're probably more serious. And then we have our young children that we do want to invite to the table to participate.
Thank you. Yeah. So this is just it's a placeholder slide that contains the information that I largely stated when the previous diagram was up, just to make sure I didn't forget to say anything. I would note that something I did leave out on the last slide was that when the facilitator synthesizes all of the change talk or any of the talk that they heard in the previous round, it is helpful to synthesize it into a positive theme. If you can pick up on a theme that has come up in a few of the participants in the circle and weave in sort of the related thoughts that other people may have expressed and present that back to the circle as a unified concept, as a more as opposed to a disparate collection of thoughts, as a single unified message that sort of summarizes the voice of the circle as best as you're able to. I find that that's sort of the most effective way to build that cohesion within that circle and sort of bring folks to the understanding that they're all seeing the elephant from different positions, if you will. You know, the joke about the three blind people, one touches the elephant's leg and says it's a tree, and so on and so forth. But if you can provide the circle with the elephant in that case, that's really the best case scenario for that empowering summary that the facilitator is supposed to give on every round, or should strive to give on every round. Right. Okay. So that's really all there is to it. Now, one of the reasons that we use open-ended questions so much in MI is that we're encouraging the participants, our relatives, to explore their experience of the topic, whatever the topic of change is, right? And so if you ask a person, how do you feel about quitting drinking? That's very different than saying, are you scared to quit drinking? Right? That closed-ended question, that cuts off exploration. Right? That removes an opportunity for them to turn their perception inward and actually consider how they feel when they think about that. When they think about making that behavior change, what emotions do they experience, right? They don't get a chance to really perceive that if you ask them a closed-ended question, or if you tell them what to do. They don't take a moment to reflect on their experience and then start to talk about it. They simply answer with a yes or no because you gave them the option of doing that. And so in the practice of motivational interviewing, it's all about open-ended questions. These are questions that cannot be answered with a yes or a no. So what was it like the last time you tried to make this kind of a change? How do you feel when you think about what might happen if you change this behavior? When do you think the most about this? What kinds of situations bring it to mind the most often? What reminds you of the direction that you want to move your life in? What are the things that you value the most? That's one of the more valuable questions to start out a talking circle with, in my experience, is to get everybody's values on the table. You know, what are the two things in your life that are the most important to you? You can say 3, but 2 is good. And to get everybody to say, you know, it's my family, it's the people I love, it's my relationships. That's 90% of the time, that's what people are going to say. At least one of the top 2 things in their world are. And then the next question, when it comes back around, could be, what effect is your current pattern of behavior having on your relationships with the people you love and who love you? And people will then inevitably share some probably pretty negative impacts that their current state of behavior is having. What can you do to change the way that those behaviors are impacting the people that you love? How can you change your behaviors maybe to reflect the fact that you do love these people and do value these relationships, right? So these are all open-ended questions that you would present and then have the circle answer in turn as the talking piece is passed. And in this way, you can sort of help people to explore their experience and explore their relationships and explore their behavior and how all of those come together, and how to move their behavior to be more integral with their values, to be more in agreement with their values. People don't like to experience themselves as not being integrated. It's painful to experience yourself as being at odds with the things that you value, to not be behaving in agreement with your ideal self, right? And if your questions, your open-ended questions, if they highlight the discrepancy between the person's current behavior and the things that they espouse to value, and if they create that gap between what they love and what they value and what they're doing and how what they're doing is affecting the people that they love and the things that they value, if you can show them the mismatch between those, they will be motivated to close that gap and to make their behavior more in line with their values and with the things that they love. And that is really what the goal of the open-ended questions that you pose as the talking circle facilitator at each round is to move them toward integrity, move them toward closing that gap, working with whatever material came from the last round of answers, right? And that's how I approach facilitating talking circles using motivational interviewing. Celina?
I wanted to share this piece because in doing this work, I know that, whether you're listening live or you're going to listen to this recorded, a lot of this sounds very serious and it sounds maybe intimidating, or it sounds like I could never do this. And I thought that way as well when I started working in Indian country, is I am too young. I don't have permission to lead prayers or ceremonies or anything like that. So I really had to ask myself, what am I supposed to do? And then I had to go look for some mentors. So I'm really honored, Lonnie, to have you as a mentor in motivational interviewing, and to know that I was already doing this work, and to know that most of us who are working in Indian country and working with Indigenous people, we really are the medicine, right? Every day when we wake up, whether it's on Zoom or you're going to physically go to an office, you're choosing when you wake up if you're going to be that good medicine or if you're going to be the bad medicine. And I know all of us have had that experience. And so I feel like motivational interviewing is really a tool to success and helping our people move towards, agreed upon goals, plans of action, harmony, integrity, moving forward in the face of opposition, moving forward and over challenges, but doing it in a way that feels good to them. Growing up, one of the things that I always learned is we already have all of the answers inside of us, right? Motivational interviewing, in a sense, is a way to pull out those answers and all of the things that we already know. And so everybody knows what's put on the table, and we can all get there if we choose to do that. So just real quickly, when I worked in the Project Fits Me with all of the tribes here in Arizona, going physically into someone's house, what an honor, first of all. And if anyone ever said, no, I don't want you to come in, I'd say, okay, well, how about outside? And that's happened as well too. You go where they want to be able to express themselves. If it's a safe place, maybe someone's having a bad day. I'm their medicine. I want to meet them where they're at. You are the medicine. And every day, I wanted to share that with you, that you choose what medicine you're going to bring to the table. But motivational interviewing really is the medicine that I wish more community health practitioners, providers, the people who are working with our elders understand that they can also utilize this tool for healing for others, but also for themselves. And this is a practice that's been used for years and years and years. When you sit up in ceremony, the same things are happening inside of teepee. When you go to a baby blessing, the same things are happening. People are gifting beautiful sentiments to this baby. When someone passes, it's the same thing. We're gifting these words to people. We want to encourage them and support them. And it might get heavy, so I wanted to give you guys a couple different tools to put in your toolbox. And doesn't necessarily mean that you would bust those out in the beginning, but to have them with you. So in your bag or in your toolbox, to have on hand is some Kleenex, your medicine also, but I wouldn't necessarily bring your medicine out in the very beginning. I would allow the people to have their medicine if they wanted to use it, a talking piece, and also coloring books and erasable markers for the kids. Or even if you notice someone who might be distracted, really watching and seeing the people who are going to participate and offering them something that they can doodle on. All of us listen differently. We know that already. And so giving a Native person, an Indigenous person, a marker and an open piece to write on, you're going to see a lot of different emotions expressed on the piece. So even if they don't share and they're in the room participating, you can ask them if they'd like to share their illustration of what was going on, or their picture that they drew. And it's usually an amazing piece that shows up that really expresses what happened during that time. So yeah, you are the medicine.
Excellent advice. Excellent. So I think we have about 10 minutes for question and answer, maybe a little bit less. But I'll stop sharing slides now and just make us available to answer questions, field any topics that people want us to expand upon that we covered or anything like that. And please do feel free to turn on your cameras if you'd like to show your face, say hi. No comments, no questions with all that controversial stuff that we just said. Nobody's going to say anything.
I was hoping somebody would, but since everyone's silent, I think in addition, Lonnie, a really good piece, especially for all of our Indigenous peoples, silence is so beautiful. Silence is okay because it really touches the person's heart that needs to share, but they might be nervous to share. And so silence really is a beautiful piece that we use in Native communities. So when we're quiet, it's okay. That person that needs to ask or even just say anything can do that.
That's an excellent point. And, you know, a lot of times when you pass the talking piece to someone, they sit there quietly for a good while, considering and exploring their feelings privately, figuring out what it is they want to share, how they want to share it, whether they want to share it. And all of that happens in silence. And so you just respect that silence and sit with it. Thank you, Gabby. I'm glad that you enjoyed the presentation. Well, moderators, did you have any questions or comments for us?
No, I don't believe we do. I didn't have anything. It was just fantastic. I think that we learned a lot And it's very useful information that we can utilize. So I don't know if the other moderators, my co-moderators said any comments. You all did a magnificent job. And we would just really like to thank you all so much for your presentations, both of you all, for the presentation, in appreciation of your support of USET and a dedication to tribal public health. We will be shipping you a small gift at the close of this conference, just to tell you that we appreciate you, we thank you, and we were just glad that you were able to, Lonnie, to join us and to bring Celina in, which was just magnificent.
I believe Kaylin had a question. She
Okay.
has her hand up.
Okay.
Kaylin, please, by all means.
Oh, I was just clapping. It wasn't a hand up. I'm sorry. It was a great presentation.
Those emojis, you have to go in deep for the real
I
clapping
think
one.
it was like this, but it kind of looked like this.
Right,
My
yeah.
bad, but
Darn
thank you. It was
emojis.
great.
Thank you so much. Thanks. It was a real honor to be here and to be invited back, Pam. Thank you so much for reaching out. I look forward to working with your organization in the future. And I would like to do the 2-day intensive workshop for folks. So if you think you can gather up enough people that will want to come, you just let me know and we'll do it.
We definitely will be looking into that, Lonnie, in the very near future. As we discussed previously, I really would like that motivational interviewing presentation to be in person. So we were just sort of holding back a little bit. We know that you can go into rooms and they can assign you, but we've been in so many rooms. I hope that we can get into an in-person training that would really be beneficial to everybody to be able to do that. So we've been trying to do that for a while. So don't think we've got you on our front burner in our front lobe of our brain. So we will definitely be giving some consideration for that. We needed to talk about incentives. I think we're going to put that up.
Yep, Gabby has a question for real, though. It's a real question.
Okay, sorry. I see your hand now. Okay.
I just want to say I think this was really insightful information, regardless if working with tribal nations or even outside. I lead a personal development coaching with a group of ladies outside of this, and it was a lot of piggyback with the motivational interview and peer counseling. And you had mentioned in the beginning about certifications. Is there any like free certifications that you can get? For myself, I didn't know if I just remember you talking about certification, so I just wanted to see.
Yeah, I don't actually offer any kind of certification. I mean, I do give people a certificate of completion at the end of the workshop, but that doesn't that's not like there isn't a motivational interviewing like certification board or anything like that that one can be like a certified motivational interviewer. It's more a way of being with clients than a certification that you achieve.
And then the workshop, is that just through your organization, or is that something that you provide outside?
I do it for Native serving organizations all over the country. Several years ago, the tribal liaison at Partnerships for Native Health, where I work within the university system, she got a request from a community organization for somebody to come and teach motivational interviewing. And she said, oh yeah, I got somebody who can do that. And she said, Lonnie, I need you to do a 2-day workshop on motivational interviewing for this Native serving organization. And I was like, oh great, Abigail, how long do I have to prepare this? She was like, 2 weeks. I was like, oh great, okay, sure.
Well, I hope we would have the that to have you do a workshop then. That would be very good.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Like I said, I have refined it over the years, and so it's a pretty well-oiled machine at this point. It's 2 days. It's pretty intense. If we do it in person, it's 2 8-hour days, and you don't get many breaks. It's exhausting mentally and emotionally. But people give it very good ratings afterwards. I mean, because I always do course evaluations just to make sure that I'm staying on my game. But yeah, people seem to find it very helpful. And oftentimes folks that have had other motivational interviewing trainings say that this was something just above and beyond what they had experienced in other settings. So I like to believe they're telling the truth.
Yeah, I just want to also mention with Celina, as you mentioned, you know, doing it is good medicine, not only for the other people that you speak with, but for yourself. And as I've done it, you know, peer counseling now with a group of women, I definitely will say that it is very good medicine both ways. And I really appreciate the work that you guys do.
Thank you so much. That's one of my presentations, is you are the medicine. And so with the work that you do, thank you so much. You know, we have so many things for women, women's empowerment, women's leadership, peer support counseling, all of these different secret societies that we have. Lonnie, I won't tell you about them later, but the work that you do, Gabby, working with women, we definitely need to start opening that up to our Indigenous men. There needs to be a space for the men as well. And I've learned that in the last year, but personal development, peer support counseling, it sounds like you already have some of those tools. So I wanted to go back to what Lonnie was saying. There's no certification for motivational interviewing. However, after you do the 2-day training with Lonnie, it's more of, you have permission now, go forth and prosper kind of thing. And so in a lot of our ways with Indigenous people, that is how it is. You know, we say in the Hawaiian traditions, it's our kuleana, it's our responsibility to our people. And motivational interviewing is just another tool that's just that. It's our responsibility to facilitate healing so that people can be happier and healthier and heal together.
Yeah, and I would echo that with a quote from one of my mentors: there are no gifts in Native culture, there are only responsibilities. So after you gain the knowledge of how to do these things and how to be with people in a good way, it is your responsibility to then do that and to not do it in another way.
Right.
Yeah.
Such great insight. I know we could go on and on and on, but unfortunately, our time has moved faster than we wanted it to. Additionally, all attendees' names